Hi there, it's Polly here with the indomitable Mr. Snoots. And Plum Wine. I have something very cool for you. This is a game that I really enjoyed when it came out. It's been re-released. It is a true classic. It's Heroquest, and I love this thing. Heroquest. Ta-da! I have basically every single version of this thing out. Whenever a new one is released, I get it. So I've got all the originals here. So, really good to see this out again. As you can see, this is a substantial box. When they re-released this thing, they had a Kickstarter and I was on it. So was Mr. Snoots. So we got the bells and whistles version. What is Heroquest, you may ask? I'm glad you asked. He's glad you asked. Heroquest is a board game of dungeoneering. And as such, it's kind of interesting at this stage where, bafflingly, current editions of D&D are trying to turn dungeoneering into a board game. Okay, so first off, this is the box for the basic game. So when you open the box for the basic game, game system rulebook, you can see there's not that much to it. A quest book. The quest book is actually a series of essentially games set up as a campaign and so on that you can play. So, now, inside this mighty box, there are some trays. So, these are the miniatures. So, you get a substantial tray of miniatures and these specialty dice. Now, these specialty dice, there are attack and defense dice. So, defense dice, attack dice, and also just some ordinary 2d6. The attack dice have like little skulls on them, which are successful hits, and the hang on, the wedge in here a bit tight. Right, you may have to take me. Here we go. So, essentially, yeah. So we've got skulls, we've got shields, and so on. Looks like 50-50, 3 of each. Basic miniatures here that we've got. We have a series of cool enemies. So cool fish guys, some demons, lots of skeletons, lots of zombies and so on. And that's all very cool. But wait, there's more. There is, delving in, another tray of miniatures. Basic thing. When you open this one up, this is the props. So you'll see there are character sheets, decks of treasure cards, racks of weapons, doors, open and closed doors. There are treasure chests, little things like rats and so on, and lots of furniture and so on to flesh out the dungeon. So, it is a 3D experience, but wait, there's still more. As you delve in, there is your basic board set. Avalon Hill, good boards. As you can see, I'll just cover my own face here, but as you can see, there's a basic setup like this. There's also like a little DM screen, a bunch of useful counters largely to mark traps, deadfalls, stairs, steps, and all of that sort of thing. Have we reached the bottom? We've reached the bottom, right. So, that's the basics. Now, how this game works is actually wonderfully simple. And that's the strength of it. This is a game that was obviously designed with the idea of playing for kids, but as an adult, I have really loved this thing. You can have a riot. So you choose a character. In the initial game, you can be an elf, you can be a dwarf, you can be a mighty barbarian hero, you can be a wizard. There are some other choices later on. But in essence, you've got those 4 choices. Now, there is a deck of spells. There are different elements. Earth, fire, air, water. What happens in a basic game, if you've got 4 players, the wizard will choose one element. There are 3 cards for spells in each element, which are spells that they can cast. So the wizard will choose an element. Then if there's an elf playing, the elf chooses an element and gets those 3 cards. And then the wizard gets the rest. They also suggest that if you haven't played it before, I think they suggest give the earth element cards to the elf and give the rest to the wizard. Great. So you have to, you can only cast a spell if you have the card, and I think you discard the card when you use the spell. Everyone else are sword swinging. The dwarf gets a big bonus in disarming and detecting traps. And you do damage based on the weapon you are carrying, oddly enough. It's not really inherent to the character, but the characters have a sheet which does give you information. Some of them are limited as to what weapons and armor they can carry. So you can't give heavy weapons to the magician, and he can't wear heavy armor, and etc. All right. You have essentially hit points, body points, which you will lose as you are hit. However, you have a ton of them. This game is a beautiful one for teaching. Look, I was going to say teaching kids the value of cooperation, but I have seen so many adults screw this thing up. The basic rules are you will have one of you is playing the evil magician. What's his name? I don't know. Xenopus or something like that. There's an evil magician who has set up the dungeon. One player is playing that. Everyone else is playing the adventurers. The dungeon master character will take their scenario book, will set up that scenario, and that big map that I unveiled, it will block off certain sections of it. It will put down doors. It'll show you how to set that up. It will have treasures, it'll have traps and everything marked on that. But player characters can only see what they see. There will be either a door or a stairwell through which they enter this dungeon section, and that is placed there. And in the simplest game, it just says essentially it will then go to the dungeon master player's left around the table. Each of these other players will take their turn. To move your character, you roll the 2d6 provided, and that is the number of squares you can move. Yes, you can move diagonally. And as you move, you will see things that come into your line of sight. So if you come around a corridor and there are monsters or doors or whatever in the corridor, they are placed on the board. If you open a door into a room and there are creatures in the room, they are placed there. Otherwise, you don't get to see anything else. Only the dungeon master character with his master map knows where creatures and things are. There are also obviously some squares and zones that he will have marked down as traps. If you move up adjacent to a monster, you may attack it. You have an attack value, that is a number of dice that you roll. You roll those, and anything that ends up with a skull is a hit. And that will do 1 body point of damage to your foe. However, everything has a defense value, which they can roll, and essentially anything on those dice that comes up with a shield will block a hit. So you're going to hammer away at things and try and reduce them to 0 hit points, and down they go. Sounds fairly simple. Everyone takes their go around the table till it comes to the dungeon master, the evil magician guy. He can now then move anything that actually has been revealed on the board. He can then move it. Stuff that's still hidden, he doesn't move. It stays, it stays inside its room until someone rudely opens the door. Unless he has instructions otherwise. The scenario might say a patrol comes on through here. Or if there's any combat, in the corridor, then this dragon will hear it, etc. And, in you go. The evil magician character has his own spells, and these are quite unpleasant spells which have been given to him. The scenario book will tell him which spells he has access to for the purpose of this particular game. Again, he uses a card to cast a spell and then kind of discards it, and the effects are all written on the card. These things can be quite nasty. player characters can find things like treasure chests. There is a substantial deck of cards, which are the treasure cards. Now, you have a set number of actions that you can do as a character. You can, in your turn, you can move, but then you can attack things. Or you can say, I am searching a room. If you search a room, there is a roll made, and there's a chance that something treasure-ish turns up. Bong! A treasure chest, or you found a secret cubby hole in the wall, or that loose tile. Ta-da! You can also search a room for secret doors. If there is one, you just find it if you said you were searching for it. Now, if you approach the treasures, you draw from the treasure card deck. They are very upfront in saying half of that deck is danger. Only half of it is actually treasure rewards. By danger, some of them are wandering monsters. These guys suddenly appear from a secret tunnel, pop up from drop in from a hole in the ceiling or something. But ta-da, they're in the room with you. Fight, fight, fight. Or it can be a trap. I quite like the traps in this. So there are pit traps. They do a tiny bit of damage, but they drop you down into the ground. And it takes you a bit to get out. There are deadfall traps, which drop a ton of rocks on you, and those are really quite dangerous. And there are spear traps, which fire a spear out of the wall, and you roll to see if you can avoid it. You also can roll to see if you avoid the deadfalls. Spear traps do some damage. The deadfalls do a buttload of damage. Falling down into the pits is annoyance, but you can search in the pit for treasure, because someone may have died down there earlier and have left their treasure on them. So, so you can spend yet more time in there. So it sounds pretty simple, but herein kind of lies the interesting traps of the game. I shall drink, haha. Because if I don't, the elephant gets into it. You would think on this basis this is a fairly dull kind of walk it forward game. Well, no, for one thing, the scenario designs are quite bright and spry. It's that cooperation mechanic that gets you. So I've seen so many kids when they play this, they, instead of kind of staying around where they can support each other, they hair off in different directions, open doors, and they each end up with more than they can handle. And that's kids, and it's teaching the value of cooperation. Adult players do that. Derek, of whom I've spoken, check one of my most recent anecdotes. Famously, like, everyone has fought through to this area and they know there's double doors. That's got to be a big room on the other side. And they're pretty sure this is where some kind of horrible thing is waiting for them. So, you can see, the rest of the players have set things up. So, right. Got the magician. He's got a spell which allows him to fire past other characters and basically drop a fireball. So he's going to be one row back. I'm going to have one guy with a bow. So when the first character is allowed to open the door, his action is then to he's got a special action with this shield. He can defend everyone that's behind him. The guy with the bow is going to basically pick off anyone close to the door. The magician can fire through to whatever horrible thing is further back, or if there's just a cluster of baddies, he can drop a fireball in and see if he can really damage them. And then the two fighters are going to thunder in, and the magician's going to come behind them. Derek, who is running another character, a fighty sort, was meanwhile at the back, and he had been tasked with, once those doors are open, you're going to rush. After that first round of combat, you guard the magic user. Basically, the magic user might have to get in so we can get a line of sight on whatever's in there. If so, you come in with him and charge in to kind of fight anything that's coming his way. But meanwhile, we need you at the back because there are wandering monsters in this thing, and they might come up down the corridor. And we don't want the unarmored magician at the back where he's going to be attacked. Okay, so as they're setting this up, each is taking their turn. So good. First guy gets his turn, good. Open the door, yes, there's a horde of rat warriors and some sort of hideous nethermost god and a magician next to it. Okay, fireball, boom. Oh shit, the demon thing's completely immune to fire element. Well done, you. Alright, well, these two guys will charge in. Good. All right, the magic is going to come in. But meanwhile, Derek's got bored, so his turn, what he's done is he's just gone the other way down the corridor. And, oh, wait, but there's some double doors. Here, I'll just open these. All right, well, that was the necromancer who had kind of set up most of this level, so there's a fairly substantial magic user. He's got a kind of demon thing as a bodyguard and, half a dozen skeletons, which he sends sailing towards you. So now this party, which had a fantastic plan for dealing with a difficult enemy ahead of it, has got something easily equally as dangerous chewing its way up the back of the party, as these things then basically take Derek and stretch him like taffy and then decide to, oh, who's next? Oh, there's magic users standing here not wearing any armor, and yeah, you just saw this happen again and again and again. Now the other thing that really kind of I find is an interesting bit of resource management and is a little layer of cleverness to the game is that treasure mechanism where you're drawing a card, because it makes people push it. You'll see them time and time again. Their hit points are getting low. It's probably time to sort of think about backing off out of the dungeon. No, they'll push it. I'm going for the treasure. I'm going to search this room for treasure. Okay. Oh, they make the roll and a treasure chest appears. Oh, good. I'm going to open it. You're on your last couple of hit points. Boom, what appears? A goblin appears. What appears? Well, it was actually a poison gas trap in the chest. That takes off 2 hit points. Oh, I don't have those. Well, you drop dead then. Yeah, much poor decision making about that happening. And just time and time again, that very simple risk-reward mechanism, and it's amazing how the most deeply convolutedly scheming adults will fall for it. The scenario books set up a string of campaigns. Now here's the next cool phase. So, as well as the main game, you can get some other scenario material. So, what we have here is some additional stuff. So you will get more quest books. So what do we got here? Spirit Queen's Torment, A Prophecy of Telor, The Crypt of Perpetual Darkness. That one has to be played with all the lights off and everyone blindfolded. So it's difficult to complete. But as you can see, each of these will have its own board setups, its special instructions to the umpire about any special thing that's going on, special stuff that happens at different points, any special rules involved. You can see monsters, traps, all that sort of thing are laid in. These also come with yet more very extra board segments, extra what do you call them, counters to go with set things from the actual scenarios. There are additional cards for treasures and so on, additional attack dice. What do we get here? We get a lot of new figures and miniatures. So we get additional player character types with their cards, and you get miniatures for a ton more cool monsters. Huzzah! There are several different quest boxes out there that you can get, and all worthwhile. Look, the basic game has enough in it to keep you going for a long time. These additional ones, yeah, if you get 1 or 2 of those, yeah, that just increases the replayability of the game. So, general assessment. Well, this game is desperately simple in its rules. It's quite flexible in its play. This game has been continuously copied and very seldom excelled. Every time you see a board game come out that's Alien, or the Doom game, or Gloomhaven, or any of these, they're really just basically largely inspired by this trying to do what this game does. Very similar mechanics, but this is where it came from. The mechanics are simple, so any kid can play it. This is a great introductory game for kids. But my gaming group used to adore this thing kind of as a break from normal campaigns, because role-playing campaigns had a lot of role-play and a lot of story and a lot of cunning and so on going on it. This game, however, was the game of going down a corridor, kicking in doors, stabbing that monster in the head and nicking its stuff, which is actually what people keep trying to turn role-playing games into. So this kind of allowed them to get that out of their goddamn systems and then play something that had a lot more nuance and fun and story and character. That goes into the role-playing game. On the other hand, you can bring some cool story and fun into this by adding that in as a groovy layer, and you can make your own things. I created my own campaigns for Heroquest, and we ran them for years as an ongoing thing, and they were really quite engaging. We had lots of players playing them because you had these ongoing characters that had kind of started to develop some real legends, and some of them have like, this guy's now on a peg leg because of something that happened to him, so he's got one less movement, but he's got this amazing sword that he can call on to do these things. These are the extra layers that you can bring in yourself to the game. Like anything, you can make this your own, and it really excels when you do that. But it's not just a game for kids, as I said. Now, the weird thing is, modern D&D, and by which I mean 5th edition and beyond, has taken the nuance of a role-playing game and attempted to turn it into a board war game. And when I see a lot of 5th ed games being played, there is a table set up with squares and set things, and characters can turn up and they've got a set of moves that they do, etc. So, ironically, they've tried kind of rolling the game back and kind of turning it into a hyper-sophisticated version of Heroquest. But Heroquest actually does that job better because the rules are incredibly simple. The artifacts and so on that you pick up will give you extra powers and extra attacks and extra defenses, and as you gain money and treasure between quests, you can return back to the armory, and there is a whole price list of things that you can buy, and all this equipment is expressed in here as cards. You can purchase these things so you can get yourself better armor, better equipment, things that do special things that can bridge over crevices, and you can get your ropes, and you can get your backpacks, and you can get your healing potions, and you can buy all sorts of cool things. So Heroquest kind of does it better because it does it more simply and more colourfully. So, if you had some 5th ed players and were trying to get them involved in indie games and so on, maybe consider running them through a couple of games of Heroquest every now and then to get that board game obsession kind of out, and also show them something that is just cacklingly good fun. Heroquest has survived the test of the years because it is simply good fun. It is outrageously good fun, and I find that there's a delight in seeing incredibly serious players. I've had miniatures games players, miniature wargamers, and serious historians and strategists, and they're mingled up with a couple of avid role players, and they're all there with their barbarian and their elf and whatever, thundering their way through a dungeon, jumping up and down on goblins, and I'll just open one more chest, what harm can it do? Thud, wallop, mince. It's just been a delight, and everyone just had a good time doing it. I haven't had like a group session of Heroquest that didn't end up with, good times and laughter. And that's why I value this game. It is a great, simple game design that appeals to you younger players, but also is entertaining and appealing to older players. It's managed to hold its own. The new version of the game, it is not substantially different from previous ones. They all intermix. All the boards, all the miniatures, all the rules intermix. Each set has a theme, so when Games Workshop took over, of course, it brought in its rat creatures and these sorts of things it loved. This current version is full of zombies and skeletons and all these sorts of things, and demons and whatever, but the adventure sets you can get for it have their own miniatures sets in them which bring in more and more things. You can paint those or not, it doesn't matter, you can play this thing straight out of the box as what it's designed for. So it's a great game. I think every gamer should really have this in their collection. It's a rollicking good game. Sometimes you get those moments when people just turn up at your place and you know, you think, oh, I should run a game for people, what should I do? You can just bring this out. Hey, let's play this, and it would usually be met with smiles and laughter. So yeah, let's go in here. Give it a shot. This is a fantastic piece of work. Anyway, hope you enjoyed the review. Hope I see everyone around the games table sometime. Hell, maybe we'll play Heroquest. Anyway, bye. Schnoots.